Welcome to Herself, a space for women to have deep conversations about the intersection between spiritual entrepreneurship and fulfilling your potential, so you can become the woman you truly are in every area of your life. After being in business for over 2 decades, I've learned, as you likely have too, that as you grow your business grows you in unexpected, often challenging, yet miraculous ways. Here, we'll talk about how to get out of your own way so you can grow a business that's abundant and sustainable while allowing you to be a force for good in the world. I'll give you simple, actionable strategies as well as wisdom and inspiration to help you root into your wholeness, lead from your values, and work in ways that feel deeply aligned so you can bring your true self into the world through your business and in every area of your life. Hello, my friend. I've been on vacation this past week, an early spring break, you could say, seeing that spring doesn't arrive yet for a couple of days. And while I'm away, rather than sharing a solo episode, I wanted to offer a conversation that I had with a longtime IFS therapist and assistant trainer, Nancy Wonder, whom I had the privilege of doing some personal work with many years ago. I'm about to say something pretty big, and when I do, please know that it's not an exaggeration. The inner critic is the biggest thing that I see holding women back. This is true today, and this has been true since I started doing this work 25 years ago. It also used to be the biggest thing holding me back, which is one of the reasons why I like to speak out about this. Now, I don't say this to berate us. I say this to help clarify things so that we can change this. So one of the things that I do when I meet with each of my clients, when we have our first Herself strategy session together, is I can see clearly in each woman what her number one inner obstacle is, what her number one outer obstacle is, what the unfulfilled dream is within her that's wanting to come forward and that maybe she's denying or avoiding, and what's the simplest path forward to clear those obstacles and to move toward the dream. And we do all that in under an hour. And it's like these pieces light up for me inside each woman, and I'm able to point those out to her so she can come in feeling confused, feeling drained, feeling overwhelmed. And she literally, I love seeing women's faces transform to be smiling and lit up and inspired and actually connected to something greater than themselves. And some element of that inner obstacle involves the inner critic, but the particulars are unique to each woman because we all have unhealed experiences in our past that are holding us back. And they're keeping us overworking, undercharging, not enforcing appropriate boundaries with our clients, perhaps with our family members as well. They're keeping us stuck at the same level, undervaluing ourselves and not moving forward, even though we're investing in courses and coaches and doing all the external things that we think we should be doing. I want to help you shift this for good. I want women to really know and use this clear pathway to transforming your inner critic, because honestly, these same struggles that you've been having for a long time don't need to be happening anymore. I've been there. I've followed this pathway. I know what it's like, and I know that it really is possible to shift things in a powerful way. So today I'm talking with this IFS therapist and assistant trainer, Nancy Wonder, about the pathway of healing our inner critics and the inner girls that they're protecting. We speak about how this isn't an endless process. It's not something that it's going to be like Sisyphus pushing the boulder uphill. This isn't a struggle you need to go to your grave with. When you do this enough, and when you do it with sincerity and with accuracy, because there are actual steps that need to be followed, you will reach a tipping point, a place where you feel more spaciousness, more freedom inside, more access to the truth of who you are. That's what I want for you. That's what's most needed for you to do what you most want to do in the world and to be who you most want to be. But we need to remember the success you're seeking is first and foremost an inside job. And not enough people are talking about that. It's all about, the larger cultural conversation is all about the externals, this course, this program, that thing. But what about this inside work that's actually going to clear the way for all of those external things to genuinely be effective? All right, here's my conversation with Nancy Wonder.
And we are here today for a special interview with Nancy Wonder to be talking about these topics that we're exploring this month of working with some of our inner parts, particularly our inner critic and our more vulnerable parts like our vulnerable child or our inner little girl. And I'm super excited about this topic. As I've shared with all of you, this is work that I've been doing for about 15 years on a regular basis and will continue to do for the rest of my life. And it's been just so instrumental in creating more physical health, emotional well-being, psychological well-being, just across the board, spiritual wholeness. So we're really going to dive into it and get to know it better, because this particular area is one of the places where we get held back the most as women, and men do as well, so across the board. All right, so I want to introduce you to Nancy, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. So Nancy Wonder is a licensed psychologist who's been living and practicing in Florida since 1999. And she helps clients with a variety of issues like anxiety, depression, chronic pain, adjustment to disability, and trauma. And she's also a certified internal family systems therapist. She's an assistant trainer with the Center for Self-Leadership, and she's a senior faculty for intimacy from the inside out. And I was introduced to Nancy via one of my longtime teachers and mentors, Sarah Powers. So Nancy is here with us today to speak to us in particular about the work that she does with internal family systems. Welcome, Nancy.
Welcome. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
Great. I was insecure about that. I don't know why. Okay, great. Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. Thanks. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have you. And Nancy, we always like to start our gatherings with like a personal sharing, just to let us know the environment that you're calling in from and how you're doing today at the level of body, mind, and heart.
And do you want me to start?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, I'm in a new office. I just moved offices, so I've kind of been in a whirlwind the last couple of weeks, but I like my new space, and so I'm feeling kind of at home here today because I have my furniture from my other office, and I'm kind of getting used to it. But and so there's that kind of hecticness I've had, but having this call is kind of helping me center more and helping what I call parts. Can I get more space and I can just really focus on this call? I think it's going to be good for me.
So Nancy, why don't we just dive in and first just define some of these terms, like what is internal family systems, what is it about, and when we talk about parts, what do you mean by that?
Okay. Internal family systems is a model of therapy that a man named Richard Schwartz developed. And the basic idea of it is that we all have an internal family system, or we have an internal family inside. But we are all multiplicitous. It's we all have many parts of us or sub-personalities. doesn't mean that you're dissociative, you have a dissociative disorder or anything. That's just our natural way of being. And so I'll just tell you a short story about how he came to this. And it's not the first model that embraces parts, and there's other models as well. But he was working with pretty severe eating disorder clients, and he noticed that they would just kind of naturally say, a part of me wants to binge, a part of me doesn't. And so he started realizing that each of his clients had a whole internal system within of sub-personalities, which he calls parts. And then as he kept working with their parts, some of them very extreme, parts that would really hurt themselves, and parts that were really critical of themselves, and parts that were more exiled and traumatized, he realized there was this aspect within them that wasn't a part at all. That, in other words, if he would ask that part to relax another part and work with another part, there would be this compassion and innate wisdom and this capacity for self-healing that was there in the client. And so this is a psycho-spiritual model, in that it's based on the idea that we all have self-energy, is what he calls it. Other people might call it something else, spirit. We might call it spirit. We might call it the Buddha, nature. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to describe it. But basically, we all have this innate capacity for self-healing that I believe is connected to a higher self. I tend to find more self-energy when I'm outside, for example. So this is what the model is based on, that we all have this innate capacity. And with that innate capacity, so my job as an IFS therapist is to help people connect with their self by first being with these parts. And there's two kinds of parts of our subpersonality. Some of them are protectors. They protect us. And some of them are exiled or traumatized or more vulnerable. So there's the protectors, and then there's the vulnerable parts. So as you work with an IFS therapist, you get compassion for all your parts, even the ones that are critical, even the ones that tell you you're not okay. We find out, what are they doing? What is their job? What is their concern? How come they're so hard on you? And we help the client foster compassion toward their parts. So it's kind of like mindfulness, but it goes a step further, that you not only notice your strong feelings and beliefs, but you extend compassion to them and help them heal so that they can let go of their extreme role.
This is kind of a random question, but is there like a range of how many, like a number range of approximately how many parts we all have within us?
Well, it's hard to say.
Or is it endless?
I mean, you could. No, it's not. I know when people first start doing the work, that's what they think. It's endless. But I think that I think there'll be cluster of parts, and it depends on each individual system is different. But you'll find when you heal a few exiles, the traumatized parts, then it heals other ones. So I don't think we can say an accurate count. And we tend to have fewer, the critical managers and those parts, if we can get them on board at first. That doesn't seem like, I don't think it's limitless. There's a point when you just have more space inside.
Where you kind of reach a tipping point.
Yeah, where you feel, you feel like a lot of your parts have healed, and not that you're not going to get triggered again, not that you're not going to, self-criticize, but you get a relationship with these parts, and then they don't have to be as strong.
Yeah, they don't dominate you as much.
That's it. They don't lead. and
Yeah.
so we call it we become more self-led, capital
Beautiful.
SELF, self-led. Mm.
So I'm assuming that you got trained in internal family systems after you became a licensed psychologist. Is that correct?
Yes, after. Mm-hmm.
So what did you
And
notice? Like, why this particular body of work to supplement your practice? Like, how have you found it to be really helpful for yourself and the people that you work with? Just to give the
I
women
think
here a sense of the benefits of this, of working
right.
with
I
our
think
parts.
it's yeah. I met Dick Schwartz. I don't know, 2003 or something, and saw his work and thought it was incredible. So I did my own personal work, and it was life changing for me in so many ways. I remembered some trauma that I couldn't remember. I was able to remember it. I was able to heal the exiles. There were the exiles around the trauma, and it was completely life changing for me. And also, this is all I do now. Is I do internal. I'm not saying I might not use another approach here or there, but primarily I do IFS, and the reason is because I get more self energy from doing the work. It's not exhausting. It's not me trying to interpret everybody. Instead, I'm following the client's lead. So it's a different paradigm than traditional psychotherapy. It's very different. So it captured me. I like the idea that say my part that likes to drink wine isn't my whole being, you know?
Yeah.
It's a part of me.
Right.
Yeah.
So you sent me an article in preparation for our interview, which I really appreciated, and it really mirrors the approach that we take here together, which is that we're also entrained to quote unquote combat or battle with our self-destructive tendencies rather than embrace and turn towards them to heal. So this is something that we firmly stand in here as well. And from your perspective, how is it that turning towards the darker parts of our psyches can actually lead us to wholeness or to this, what you call this self-led existence?
Right. Well, it's yeah. So it's sort of paradoxical. You think these dark parts are, we think that they're destructive and they're destroying us. Even really intense parts like parts that cut, or parts that drink too much, or parts that shop when you can't afford it. Those kind of parts. Those are protectors that get really extreme in order to drown out the pain in the system, to drown out the pain of the exiles. So, like I said, there's two categories of parts: protectors and protectors, which are trying to manage us, trying to douse the pain out, so to speak. And when we can get in touch with them and find out when they got their job, many of them are very young, and what was happening when they got their job. I mean, this is a simple example of a protector. So let's say when I was a little girl, I don't think this really happened, but I would run through the living room while my dad was watching TV, and he would say, "Nancy, you're too loud. If you do that again, I'm going to spank you," right? So I knew it was dangerous to run loudly through the living room. My dad was watching TV. So I developed a self-critic part. One of my protectors developed the job of being critical of me, saying, "You're too noisy, you're too loud." And so do you see how it has a job of protecting me?
Mm-hmm.
In that situation in my dad's living room. But the only problem is our critics sort of they think they've got to do it all the time. Mm-hmm. So then if I'm trying to be spontaneous or trying to be, the critic's saying, "You're too loud, you're too much." So our critics take on jobs for very good reasons as we're children. And we just have to find out what's the reason and make friends with them. So it's about yourself with a capital S, making friends with, I mean, not making friends. It's sort of like friends, but more developing a relationship with the critical manager or other
So bringing
protectors.
awareness so they're in communication with each other.
You actually, so that your self energy is in communication with your let's just call the critical manager as one example. You get a relationship with your critical manager.
Right.
So that makes
So
sense.
just to
So
translate a little bit,
yeah.
just to translate a little bit for the women here, like we use the term inner critic. So could we say inner critic and critical manager interchangeably?
Yes, you can call it the inner critic. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm calling the protectors sometimes we call managers or firefighters, but
okay.
I don't think we need to get in the complexity of that in language. We can just call it inner critic. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we understand that the inner critic is protecting something.
Yes.
Another part.
Yes. It got its job because it's probably protecting more vulnerable part that might have gotten hurt if it doesn't do its job.
Okay.
Like if I would have ran through the living room again, I would have gotten spanked, and that would be terrifying for me at that age.
Mm-hmm.
This didn't really, I don't know that this really happened. This is not a self-disclosure thing, but I think it's just a real simple example.
Yeah, something we can all definitely relate to.
Right. Yeah, because most of us had parents that told us we were too much, too loud.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us, can you tell us
teachers.
more about the protectors or teachers? Can you tell us more about the protectors and like more about who they are and who they're protecting, or just what else we might need to know about them?
Okay. So maybe I will tell you there's two types of protectors. One type are managers, and they are preemptively trying to ease the pain inside and keep us safe by, like my inner critic says, Nancy, you're too loud, you're too much, you're too loud, you're too much, so that I wouldn't get spanked and more vulnerable part wouldn't have gotten hurt. So manager protectors are very preemptive. They're thinking about the future. They're you could kind of talk about people with a lot of anxiety and hyperarousal because they've been through trauma. Those parts are managing. They're looking around, trying to look for danger. They're trying to manage the environment and so that there's more safety for the vulnerable parts inside. And then there's other protectors that are, is that clear? Is that part clear?
That is clear, yeah.
Okay. And then the other protectors are firefighters, which they don't care about the future. They, just like a firefighter might, if there was a fire in this office right now, he'd just come in and blow it out without even worrying about my nice furniture, right?
Right.
And that's how our firefighters are. They're like, uh-oh, danger. So if something like triggers an exile, we call those the hidden parts, the vulnerable parts. If something's triggering them and there's pain, the pain is starting to erupt in the system, the firefighters come in and do their work and they say, I don't care, I'm going to eat this whole entire cake, or I don't care, I'm going to go out and get drunk. I don't care. They don't worry about the future. They go put, $500 on your credit card when you really can't afford it. Mm-hmm. So they just put out the fire. So many times addictions are firefighters. So it's a way of coping with the pain of the exiles or the vulnerable parts of us.
So how does that, because I think that's definitely something that all of us can relate to. It's like you eat too much to self-soothe. You have that extra second, third, fourth glass of wine to self-soothe. You smoke that cigarette to self-soothe. You know it's not good for you. You know you're going to feel bad afterwards, but you do it anyway to put out, like you said, the fire of the emotional pain.
Right, a part of you knows, but go ahead.
So how within IFS, like how would you work with that with someone?
Well, That's a good question. First, I would start with the critical managers. I'd start with the one, because, it's like, so you go out and have 4 glasses of wine and you get up in the morning, you've got that wine headache. And then the critical manager or the inner critic comes in and goes, see, you did it again. Why did you do that? You didn't sleep well as you usually would. You got a headache. Why did you do that? You knew you drank too much. So the inner critics and what we call critical managers are kind of polarized with the firefighters. So when we do this work, we start with the critical managers and get a relationship with them and find out how they're trying to help. And trying to help the client capital S self, connect with the inner critic, really getting her job, how old she was, how long she's been doing that job. And then once she really get what the inner critic's trying to do, then you can go to the firefighter and just start forming a relationship with that. And then the real work happens, though, when you have a relationship with the protectors, and then you can go down to where the pain is. We call them exiled parts, which are parts that have been traumatized. And it doesn't have to be a big T, little T, big T's. You know what I mean by little T, small traumas versus horrible traumas. But when these little parts have been hurt, and they hold burdens and which are beliefs and emotions that they've been holding on to for all these years. And then when you're able to heal them, which we do by forming a relationship with the client self to the part, and they're able to let go of their burdens, then the firefighter just kind of slows down because there's less pain in the system.
Because the self is working to soothe that pain through the connection.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. The self-to-part connection eases the pain. And even with this model, the way we work can let go of the pain. We call it unburdening the pain. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and here we work a lot with the practice of inner mothering or self-mothering, and
that's what it's like. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it's like.
So I jumped in and asked you about that example, with the drinking too much wine when you were talking about, the managers and the firefighters. Was there more that you wanted to say about that? Or did you feel complete with that?
Well, I think so. If you guys get how the inner critic is pulling, it's kind of in a tug of war with the one that likes to drink wine. They kind of go back and forth. And what we're wanting to do is get underneath them to where the exile is. Mm-hmm. So you can find the pain that made you want to drink 4 glasses. What were you covering up?
Right.
What was hurting?
And usually, I think we need more tools to go into those vulnerable parts.
That's right. Yeah,
because,
and that's why
there's so much protection around them.
That's right. And so that's why we start with the protectors because if we get them on our side and they know that there's self-energy there, they have jobs. All parts have good intentions. Believe it or not, even the ones that cut or drink too much or whatever, they have good intentions. And so and even the inner critic has a good intention. So once the client self can really hear that intention, then the protector goes, phew, I've been working so hard so many years, and now I don't have to. There's someone bigger than me to take care of this. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And something that bothers me when I sometimes see things that people are writing about the inner critic or hear them saying about it is wanting to silence the inner critic or extinguish the inner critic, or like there's so much judgment and hatred towards the inner critic. And I really appreciate what you're saying here, that it's about listening, communicating, having compassion, understanding the positive motives behind even these parts that can cause us pain if they're misdirected.
Exactly. That's exactly
Yeah.
that. It's a really different way of looking at inner critics. It's a completely different paradigm, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, we could even, like, the analogy could even be like a troubled child. You know, they're
It
acting
could be.
out,
Yeah.
and we know enough now psychologically that we wouldn't then just be mean to the child and keep abusing the child, but we'd want to help it to heal by giving it love, relating to it,
Exactly.
building a connection.
Having a relationship with it. Yeah, building a connection. And many of these inner critics are very young parts of us. And many protectors are very young. They've been doing their job for a really long time. Like the example I said about being too noisy. You know, that's at 3, 4, 5. You start getting the message, ooh, I'm too noisy, I'm too much. So the voices you hear around you, then you kind of take them in and say, okay, they're right. I'm too loud. I'm too noisy. I've got to stay safe.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned with the more vulnerable parts that they carry a trauma, like with a lowercase t or an uppercase t. Can you give any examples of what that range is? Like what would be an example of a trauma with a lowercase t versus trauma with an uppercase t?
Well, trauma with it's a whole continuum. It's probably not 2 columns, right? They're more of a continuum.
Yeah.
Smaller traumas might just be a school teacher, shaming you a little bit, or just the everyday thing, an older brother picking on you. Whereas as it goes up the continuum, we're talking about sexual abuse, physical abuse, witnessing domestic violence, all those kinds of things, boundary issues, boundary violations. So we're going from smaller things to really big, impactful things. I mean, there's no way you can get through life without getting hurt. You're going to get hurt as children, but this extent of the hurt, and people who've been more traumatized are going to have bigger and louder protectors. If that makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah, because they have more to protect.
Right. Exactly.
They have bigger pain to cover over.
That's right.
Nancy, do you notice any differences, just general differences between any parts in women versus men? Since this is an all women group.
Right. Well, I do specialize in sexual abuse issues, and I find that there's many women who've either been, like capital T, sexually abused, or some sort of, and just being the way we are stigmatized or stereotyped and objectified and all that. So for women, a lot of us have a lot of inner critics about how we look and our bodies, and are we good enough, but I think women and men, on the other hand, tend to cut off from their bodies, and so it's harder for men to kind of feel into their parts at first. So I love working with women because I think we have an innate ability to be more in tune with our bodies and feel our parts.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think women have unique issues. And the stuff around eating is more prominent for women. Diet. And also just feeling good enough, because we do have a sexist culture. I mean, even though it's getting better in some ways, it's still very sexist.
Just self-esteem issues.
Yeah, self-esteem, exactly. Mm-hmm. Shame. I mean, in touch with the part not kind of recently though. Remember, because in my family, it was Indiana in the 50s and 60s when I grew up, and um, the men were more important than the women, and I realized my mother thought that about me, that my brother was more important than me. It was just a really basic
Wow.
feeling, which created shame in me, a part that felt shame about being female.
Mm-hmm.
It was really good to get in touch with that and
Mm-hmm.
unburden that part and just unburden that shame.
So I know this question is kind of coming out of left field, but it just popped into my mind as we were talking about women and bodies, and that I think one of the reasons why one of my mentors, Sarah Powers, mentioned you to me is because of your yoga background.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And a big piece of the work that we do here is yoga.
Oh, great.
So how have you found that interrelationship between your yoga practice and this working with your parts? Are they related?
Yeah, because one thing is when you do yoga, you get very more aware of your body, right? I mean, for me, we're talking. Are you talking about hatha yoga, doing postures?
Hatha yoga. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in doing postures,
We do
I've always
meditation
studied
too,
it.
but
Yeah, meditation is really important too. Because that can help you find that self energy. But postures are about alignment, about tuning into your body, getting to the pose. It just makes you more attuned to your body, and our parts live in our bodies. They're, of course, some of them are mind, some of them can be outside your body, but most of the parts, especially the vulnerable parts, are in your body. So having the body awareness that yoga gives you can help you get in touch with your parts much faster.
Yeah.
And connect with them. Because, yeah. So yoga is a great complement to this work.
And can you lead us through an exercise to help women go inside and learn more about some of their parts, to get a felt experience of this?
I would love to. Now, how many women are on the call, may I ask?
We have just over 100 in the group, and we have about 25 on the call live.
Okay,
a lot of people
wondering.
listen to the recording.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, well, what I'd like to do then is I sort of wish I could see you all or hear you all, but I understand there's not enough time. But just to say, don't do any. If this doesn't feel good, I'm going to talk you through what we call kind of a self-led meditation and have you get in touch with a part. But if anything I say doesn't work for you, you don't have to do it, okay? I don't want anyone to be triggered unnecessarily. This is all if it feels okay for you. So what I thought we would do is maybe each of you could kind of right now decide, maybe find an inner critic. You don't have to get the meanest one, but one that comes around that you hear. One that says you eat too much, you drink too much, you made mistakes, you make too many mistakes. Just take a few minutes and just think about even the last few days, any voices you heard or and just see if you can identify one part of you that tends to be an inner critic. And many of us have more than one, so just pick one that's not too hard on you, but one that does come up. I'll give you a few minutes to think about it, and if you have a journal, you might write it down and just kind of write down what it says to you. And then once you have that inner critic and a few things it says to you, I'd like you to put your pen and journal down and feel into where you're sitting or lying down, or if, whatever you're sitting on, the floor, couch, chair, and feel the reliable source of support you're getting from that chair. And get your body in a comfortable position. And then if you will, take 3 deep breaths in, just big belly breaths. And as you exhale, just feel a little softening in your body. And take another breath in your own time. And then a third breath. And then just begin to notice your breath. Notice your body, just breathing regularly, whatever your breath wants to do now naturally. And just see if you can breathe in a little calm connection that we have here in this group. Just for another few moments, just breathing in calm. And then see if you can invite in this inner critic. And as you're inviting the inner critic in, see if there's any parts that really don't want to do this. And just identify them. If somebody is in there going, I don't want to do this, and let them know that we're gonna go really slowly. We're not gonna rush, and that you can stop at any time if it's too triggering. So just see if there's any kind of fear there or part that's a little afraid to get to know the inner critic. And if that's the case, that's okay. And you may need to just stay with the fear. But using your breath to connect to whatever you're noticing right now. Using your breath just to connect to whatever part might be there. But hopefully you're able to get to invite in the inner critic. So a part that tells you that you're not okay. And if there's parts that are afraid of it, just spend some time with them, letting them know that we're not going to have the inner critic take over. We're just going to get to know it. So once your system is allowing you to be with your inner critic, kind of notice where it is in or around your body. Is it outside your ear telling you these things? Is it inside your head? Does it have some kind of body sensation, like a turmoil or any kind of sensation like pushing or tensing or tightness? Just see if you can notice your inner critic. Now, if there's a part that doesn't let you do that, stay with the part that's not letting you do that. Just by being with whatever you're noticing, by breathing into whatever you're noticing. But if you can, be with the inner critic right now. And where does she show up? In your mind, right outside your head, or somewhere in your body? And as you notice the inner critic, just see if you can listen to it for a little bit. See if you can be with it. And letting the inner critic know, if it can let you be there with it, it will be less lonely. It won't be all alone. And just connecting with it if you can, just a little bit with your breath. And as you're sitting there with the inner critic, see if you can notice, how do you feel toward that part of you? And if there's a part that hates it, see if it would be willing to take a step back just for this exercise today, to let you learn where this inner critic came from and how it's trying to help you. And so just breathe yourself a little bit bigger than maybe the parts that don't like it, or the parts that are anxious about it. And see if they'll just trust us for a little bit here to just get a relationship with the inner critic. Because if we can get a relationship with her, she won't have to be so extreme. So breathing yourself a little bit bigger, and ask yourself, how do I feel toward the inner critic right now? And just see if it's possible to feel a little curiosity, where she came from, those kinds of things. And I'm going to ask some questions. Now, if you're with a part that hates her and will not relax, and stay with the part that hates her. I want you to be present to whatever you have going on. But if it's possible, could you please go to the inner critic, extending it curiosity, just some curiosity energy, just some attention to it. And what you might ask it is, how long have you had this job? And if you want to jot these answers down as they come, it's fine. Or you can wait and jot it down when we're finished. So how long have you been doing this job? And what was happening when you got your job? And she may not know. She may be so young she doesn't know. But just whatever there is that she wants you to know about, where she got these, where her job came from. And what is she concerned is going to happen if she doesn't do her job? What else is she concerned about? Are there any more concerns that she has? And just notice if you can open your heart up just a little bit to her and extend her. And if you can't, don't force it. But if it feels natural to you, just extend some compassion to this part that's working so hard and has been working so hard so that maybe she can begin to notice you a little bit. And then take some moments to write down what you've learned about her job, how long she's been doing it, what she's concerned is going to happen if she doesn't do her job. Just take some time to write that down. If she does have body sensations or she's more in your mind, how you notice her, just anything you want to write about her. And where she got these messages that she keeps talking to you about. Did she take it in from family or teachers or just anything she needs to tell you about her job? And when that feels complete for now, see if you can make an intention to check back with this part over the next several days so that you can keep this relationship going. So the inner critic isn't on automatic pilot. Instead, you notice her and can be with her. And then also, I wonder if she can give you a glimpse, and we don't have time to go into a more vulnerable part, but could she give you a glimpse of who she's protecting? Maybe just a sense of some hurt that she might be protecting. And she may not know, and that's okay too. And then just taking a couple really deep breaths in, making an intention to maybe check back with this more vulnerable part in the future. And when you're ready, see if you can come back to the circle. And then when people are ready, I'd love to hear if that's possible. Any?
It is possible, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So for the women who are here live, if you have a question and you're calling on the phone line, you can press *2 on your keypad. Or if you want to share about, Nancy, is there anything in particular you want them to share, or just if they
Well, I
want
would
share their
love to hear
experience?
yeah, I'd love to hear their experience. Nothing particular, but
Okay.
what was it like for them? Even if it wasn't good, I'd want to hear. All comments are welcome.
Great. And if you're on the webcast, you can type your comment or question into the Q&A box. Okay, so *2 if you're on the phone, and type your question in to the webcast box if you're on into the Q&A box if you're on the webcast. Okay. I'm not seeing anyone speaking up.
Would it be helpful if I asked more of a question?
Possibly, we can give that a shot to see if anyone
I'm
out there
wondering.
wants to break through the silence.
I know it takes courage.
It does take courage.
So it's like my example of running through the living room. I didn't want my dad. I wanted my dad to love me, not to be mad at me. So my little exile, so my inner critic formed so that he would love me more, so he would not be mad at me.
So you would do what you needed to do in order to be loved.
Yes, exactly. And the inner critics help us do whatever they could do. And to keep us feeling safe is another core issue. Feeling safe, but also not feeling so alone.
Yeah, it's a really rich modality. And Nancy, is there anything that you want to say to leave us with?
Oh, what a wonderful invitation. That remember all your parts are trying to help you. They all have good intentions. And remember that you all have a capacity to heal them. And if there's people out there that didn't even get to their inner critic, that's okay too. Because this was kind of it's possible some of you struggled with even getting to her or him. Also, some inner critics are male, kind of have a male energy. But I don't want you to feel bad about it, because it's, you are where you are, and whatever you're able to breathe into and notice. And just to start thinking of yourself as having parts, so that when the inner critic comes up, that's not all of you. It's just a part of you.
One of the things I love about this conversation and about IFS in general is how non-shaming and non-pathologizing this approach is. It is not about combating or fixing ourselves. Rather, it's about deeply loving and caring for ourselves, for all parts of ourselves. It's a much softer, much more effective approach to transformation that actually brings lasting results. So if you'd like more support with learning and implementing this transformational healing practice in your own life and work, I invite you to join me in going deeper together inside the Inner Critic Cure. It's a life-changing, short immersion that starts really soon. During this 4-day immersion, you'll transform the harsh voices in your head that are holding you back, so you can become the woman you're destined to be in business and in life. So by joining the Inner Critic Cure, it will empower you with 1, a winning mindset to help you overcome any obstacle you encounter. 2, renewed personal power and self-trust instead of staying stuck in painful, repeated cycles of self-sabotage. And 3, sustainable success strategies so you can soar toward your dreams without burning out. Last, number 4, it offers a proven start-to-finish healing model to overcome self-doubt and achieve the lasting fulfillment that you most want. I'd love to share this with you. You can learn more and join us at programs-sarahavaughnstover.com/immersion. That's programs-sarahavaughnstover.com/immersion. The best part is this 4-day immersion, which includes daily live classes, action steps, and community, it's only $37. So the cost of a single DoorDash delivery will honestly yield you inner and outer freedom for the rest of your life if you engage with the teachings and the practices with sincerity. Now, I mentioned community, and I want to highlight that the community of women who gathers for this immersion is always inspiring and uplifting. This is a huge gift, because doing this kind of work on our own can feel really lonely and isolating. We can feel like we're the only one going through these things, and the truth is we're just not. So I'd love to share this with you. I'd love to see you there. This work has been life-changing for me, and I'm not at all exaggerating when I say that it will be for you too. Again, you can join us at programs-sarahavaughnstover.com/immersion. Thank you for joining me today. And remember, change doesn't come from listening alone. I invite you to commit to taking one small or large courageous action after today's conversation. One step you can take, if you haven't already, is to sign up for my Sunday journal. It's a weekly newsletter filled with inspiration and reflections about the intersection between spiritual entrepreneurship and fulfilling your potential to help you become the woman you truly are in every area of your life. You can subscribe at programs-sarahavaughnstover.com/journal. And if you found this podcast valuable, please share it with the women in your world. Also, I'd be very grateful if you'd leave a review. It helps others find resources like this, and I'd love to hear what's coming alive for you after listening today. Above all, keep going, and never forget the unique offerings you and your true self bring to the world. Until next time, I'm sending you my heartfelt support.